Next step, attaching the engine room to the mast. The crane operator must line up his load within millimeters. It's like balancing a semi-truck on 4 basketballs, while buffeted by wind and swell. The final task is the most difficult and dangerous, attaching the third blade to the engine. The crew must perfectly line up all the bolts. Bend a single bolt, and the whole turbine will have to be taken apart and hauled back to land. Hoob's wind farm is complete. Now he can harvest power.
And I'm really very, very proud.
One day, wind could power all of Holland. But what of the calmer parts of the planet? Where do they turn for power? To the moon. How do you shut down an entire city? Simple. Pull the plug. August 14th, 2003. A small power surge in Ohio overwhelms the nation's power grid. A blackout sweeps across the East Coast. For nearly 24 hours, America's biggest city is powerless.
The blackout was terrible. We lost everything in this island. Whole New York City went down. There was no power. It was one of the worst days of my life. I was stuck on the train. I'll never forget that.
Gristedes Mega Market on Roosevelt Island was devastated.
We were not able to save any of the perishable foods. We lost thousands of dollars in meats, milks, just about everything that's perishable went down. It was a disaster. The more power we use, especially in the summer, the more likely we are to have a blackout.
The Big Apple guzzles power. Every day, New York City consumes more energy than many African countries. Now Gristedes, a Manhattan grocery store, will become the test site for an electrifying experiment. Creating homemade power.
And we feel like what's going on here today is a start at doing something profoundly different that'll have profound goodness for the rest of the planet.
Trey Taylor plans to give New York a new kind of energy. Safe, clean, limitless. His energy source literally surrounds Manhattan.
The water flows around New York City are much like an untapped battery, a source of power, because it's not only this East River that we're crossing over right now, but it's also the Hudson River. So all of Manhattan, New York, its 5 boroughs are surrounded by moving water, tides and rivers. And that's a tremendous amount of power to be tapped.
Trey has spent 7 years developing the technology to harness that power. Each turbine will generate 35 kilowatts, enough to power 20 households for a year.
This system is an underwater wind turbine using the tidal currents to generate electricity. Now that hasn't been done before. With these first 2 turbines and the 4 to follow, it'll be the first field of underwater wind turbines producing electricity, and if we keep this up, we could make New York City the world's largest renewable energy city.
Trey's turbines are about to debut off Roosevelt Island. It's a partnership between the state of New York and private investors. The first to benefit will be Gristedes, just 10 feet from the river's edge.
They're the first takers of this power. It is going to work here. And then from New York, the rest of the United States, Canada, the UK, and then off we go into the developing countries.
They begin by anchoring a barge that can lower legs into the river and jack itself up. A safe platform to work on. They'll need it. Dutch sailors named this channel Hell's Gate. Every 6 hours, the gravitational pull of the moon forces tides to rage through the East River.
These currents are moving at about 4 knots, and that's about the speed of a sailboat goes. That's really very fast water. But for us, that's good. That's a lot of energy in that kind of water.
2 divers will bolt the turbines onto their foundations on the riverbed. It's only safe to dive between the tides when the water is briefly calm. Their window, less than an hour. The race against the clock begins. If the divers don't finish in time, they could be swept away, turbines and all. 15 feet underwater, the visibility is an arm's length.
And on the bottom.
It's so dark below, the divers need a compass to guide the turbines into place.
Yeah, 2 bolts is about 245. Roger. 225. 245.
All stop. All stop.
With more than 4 tons of steel overhead, it's a touchy moment for everyone.
Bring it back a touch.